Hello and welcome to training for software operation of Afinia Studio for 3D printing. Through this video we're going to show you how to open the software, go through and set our parameters for printing, selecting print files, and sending the print job to the printer. So let's go ahead and get started. So the first thing is I just have in the background here this is our support page on our website, that if you have any questions you can fill out a support form, send it in, and somebody will get back to you very quickly. But I'm going to go ahead and open Afinia Studio, and this is the application, Afinia Studio. Click here, and in our screen that comes up this is the home screen. So we have About Us, Build. This is going to be the main area we go to, but before we jump into there, this is our Help section, where it's got manual links for the information for the manuals and guides, instructional videos, frequently asked questions, contacting our support, and some other task-oriented things here. Very important that you go here if you have any questions. So I'm going to jump back here into the Build section. And as we are in our Build section, we can take a look here at the top, and I'm actually already connected to a 3D printer, but I'll show you how you can actually, if you haven't connected, how you can do that. So if you click the gear icon here, it's going to come up with language, printer, update, cleanup cache, version declaration. The update, if you click the update, it'll allow you to click another link to go back to our support page, to our download section, and download any updates that might be available. Here I'm going to go ahead and click printer. And what this does is it goes out and searches our network. If we have any printers connected to our network, either via Wi-Fi or LAN, it's got to be on the same network that my computer is running from. It shows a list of 3D printers here, some that are available. These are not available because they're grayed out. These are available. And then you can also connect via USB directly to the computer, to the 3D printer. That would also show up here on the list. So I'm going to deselect the printer that I've been attached to. And now you can see I have no attachment to a printer. And up here in this top bar, it's saying printer not connected. So I'm going to go ahead and connect now. I'm going to click there. Oops, wrong one. Much better. So you have the green check mark here. So I'm going to go ahead and close out of this window, and we can see that all of the, it's got our filament associated to it. It's got the platform temperature. It has the nozzle temperature. And then in this section here, if I hit this down arrow key, and if I had other printers available to me, I could actually connect to it that way. So the first thing that I like to do, a good practice is especially as you're just loading up and setting up your printer, this is on the assumption that your printer is already set up, obviously, because we're connected. I'm going to click Maintenance, and in here we are going to be able to see what filament is being read from the printer. It'll actually capture that. We can change that by going through this list, and then we can also set custom filaments with custom nozzle temperatures, custom platform temperatures, by going to the Customize section here. It's a little bit of an advanced setup, so we're going to go ahead and just go through our basics. So where it says Afinia, these are already preset. You'll see it in the software when you open it up. So I'm going to go ahead and just select ABS. The weight, it decrements the weight with each print that you do. So I'm going to go ahead and assume that I've just put in a brand new spool of 500 gram filament, and I'm going to select that value. And this history will tell you how much filament the system has used altogether so far. We come up into here, and just like we have for the on the printer touchscreen display where we can do extrude, withdraw functions, we can do that directly through the software here. This will override the touchscreen on the printer if we're in this screen here. And then we have our selection of our print board. We only have one print board. It's the perf board. Whether you're using the flex perf or the flex glass or the perf glass, it's still the same value. Nozzle diameter, most always you're going to be using 0.4 millimeter. Now this 0.4 millimeter has to match the actual nozzle aperture size on the extruder itself. Our ABS extruder and our PLA extruder come default at 0.4 millimeters. If you are selecting TPU, you'll notice this will turn red, and it requires you to use 0.5 millimeters. That's the size of the nozzle on the TPU extruder. But I'm going to go ahead and switch back to ABS. I'm going to go ahead and show you the selections here. We have 0.2, 0.4, 0.6 millimeters. These are all inside the box. It comes with the H+1, but the default one that is actually attached to the ABS or PLA extruder is 0.4 millimeters. So we'll stick with that. My next section here is heat. And this is actually preheating the platform. It's a good practice when you're getting ready to 3D print, whether you're doing it in ABS or PLA or polycarbonate or whatever materials you're looking at printing, is to preheat the platform. So I'm going to click this, and this is going to heat it for 15 minutes. I can change those up to, to preheat it up to an hour if I like. 15 minutes is plenty of time. Now when you go ahead and print, this is going to go ahead and not stop this process, but override this process to go ahead and start printing. It's not going to heat the full 15 minutes if you've sent a print job. This will stop heating at 15 minutes if you haven't sent a print job at all. So I'm going to go ahead and click close on this window. One thing that, and this is if I was just to go ahead and get started with printing. Now, if this is the first time that I'm connecting to a printer itself, and I've went through and I've done the auto level with the printer by itself in a standalone mode, I want to come into here and I want to take a look. This is actually pulling values from the printer, and I want to see how level my platform is. And the leveling of a platform, the levelness of a platform is crucial for good prints. It's critical to not have failures of the extruder. You want a level platform, and when I say level, it's not level to the ground, it's level to the XY path of the nozzle itself. So, so we'll come in here and we'll take our readings, and as you notice here, as I float past each of these numbers, our dots likewise move up here. And so this is a representation of our platform. This is our back left hand corner of the platform, and this will be the front right hand corner of the platform. And what's that associated with is, so 9 is our front right, 1 is our back left, 3 is our back right, 7 is our front left. The values, you're always going to have one of these values, at least one of these values, be a 0.00. This is going to be our high point on our platform. This is the part of the platform that is closest to the same plane as the nozzle. And then the values here in these other cells are the deviation of how far that point is from that plane. So in speaking here, we can see is that this one is the highest point and this one's the lowest point. Now the software, when it's printing the raft, accommodates for those deviations so that when you're printing, when you get to the model, it's printing perfectly level. If these values are above 1 millimeter or 1.0, then your platform is too far out of level for the system to operate properly. What you'll see is you'll get warping if your area here is too wide, or you'll get if you try to accommodate for this wide area by raising the nozzle height, then you're going to have back pressure into your extruder, which will cause filament jam-ups. In a different video, we're going to go through on how to get that set up so that everything is within this parameter. The closer to 0 you get, the better. Okay, this is one of the biggest things to make sure you're taken care of on the 3D printer for good prints. This in here, you can also do a new auto level, which is the same as without doing the auto calibrate in the touchscreen display itself. You can do a manual leveling, which is not necessary unless you're on an H400 Plus, because the auto level is not available on the H400 Plus. And then the nozzle detect, it'll automatically detect the nozzle. Anyways, model calibration, really don't need to do anything. This is more of an advanced section here that will actually calibrate the XY as it moves along the Z. Something that if you want to do it, you can, but I'm saying is let's not borrow trouble. Let's just stay with this screen. Okay. So I'm happy with the values here. Everything's less than 0.5, which is way lower than 1.0. So I am good. I'm going to click confirm. And even to back up another step with this, we can initialize the printer. So the printer needs to be initialized for us to be able to operate to it and print to it. So we can do that through the software here. I usually initialize the printer when I start it and with the touchscreen display and get that taken care of. But just wanted to explain that. We'll move to here in a second, but this is where we're going to add our files. And we can do this a few different ways. We can add some basic files. So if you just wanted to start off with something just right away, you can hit this and you got your block, and you can change your values here to change the size of your block and such. So it shows you that. Now, as you can see, I can hover around. So I hit my left mouse button and drag the cursor around, and it'll give me some different views here. All right. I'm going to go ahead and remove this particular model, and I do that by hitting the right mouse key over the model, and then I'm going to go ahead and click either delete or delete all. If I've got multiples on there, objects, I'm just going to hit delete all. And what you're mostly going to be doing here is adding an STL file. These are the different file formats we have here. STLs, in OBJ, 3MF. These are all the different file formats that we can actually import. 99% of the time, which you're probably going to be importing, is an STL file. All right, and I have an STL file here. I'm just going to select this one, and I'm going to click open. Oops, there we go. And that dropped it right on my platform here. Now I can go ahead and I can add other items. and to where you can print multiples at the same time. But I actually only want to concentrate on the one item right now. So I'm just going to delete that one item and still be left with my object here. If I click on that object, it's going to give me the file location, file name, and some parameters of the model in regards to the sizes. So my next step here is, once I've got this on the model, I can zoom by rotating my mouse wheel in and out to get a closer look. And then over here, this wheel here allows me to manipulate moving, rotating, scaling my object. So let's go through some of these. So if I want to move my object, I can click the move key, and then I can choose a direction to move it. And as you see, when I click this, it highlights the arrows that the direction it's going to move. Likewise, if I just hover over an arrow, that will allow me to move that. If I hover over the square, that's going to be free movement. As I am setting here, these are millimeter increments that I can move. So if I know I want to move it 50 millimeters to the right, I can click that and it moves it 50 millimeters to the right. If I want to just grab with my left mouse key holding it down, I can also move it this way, or I can type in a value and hit enter, and it'll move it that way. Otherwise, like I said, if you hold this, you've got free range to move it around. Now if I move it this way and I rotate my platform, virtual platform here, you're going to see that now my model is not on the platform. This is going to be difficult to print, if not impossible. You always want to have a part of the model down onto the platform, hopefully a nice flat area here. So I can just simply hit this, which is placing it on my platform right in the middle. Okay. Another function is you always have the undo. So I can undo it back up to there. Boom. And so that is move. Let's talk about rotate. And rotate, again, we can do it either X, Y, or Z. And again, you see how those lines turn green. Same thing as if I hover over it, it will turn them green. And I can, by holding the mouse key down as I'm hovering over the item, over the line, I can change the angle that way. Or I can hard type in the angle. Or I can select one of the values here. Okay. Again, undo if you need to do undo. But if I have rotated this into such a way that I'm missing my flat area being on the platform, I can hit this button, rotate face to bottom. Okay, so if I click that, now I come into where I can zoom in, and I can click an area that is going to be, I want on the bottom of my print. So I click here, and now what we can see what we've done is we've rotated that flat surface down onto the bottom. This is going to be really important for if you're doing some scanned 3D images that you want to print a flat surface down, or just change the direction that's a best direction for printing. this is a great way to be able to do that. Once you're happy with how that lays out, you can click Confirm, and you're back. Scale. If we click that, same interface. We have our arrows here. We are locked right now so that we are going to scale in all directions at the same time. So if I hover over a line, you can see that I'm scaling all directions at the same time. So it's uniform, it's scaling. If I turn off the lock, now I'm back to where I can hover over a line, or I can select the axis, and I can either plug in a number or I can select one of these values. Now this is going to be if I want to scale it down 50%, or have it scaled to 80% of the original, 120% of the original, all the way up to 10 times the original. You can do it so you have hard numbers there, or you can hover over the line and scale up that way. Better if I zoom out a little bit. So there, this is that's our object. And if I want to hit undo, I can do that, get it back to where it kind of was. So I'm going to skip these. We've already done the undo. Mirror or flip. This is going to allow you, if you built, say, one bookend, but you want to make the other bookend, but you don't want to redesign it, you can just put in a copy and hit flip, and it will make the exact same copy but a mirror image of it. Okay. We've already talked about Autoplace. This is a clip view. Here you can change the angle and everything like that to see the inside of what you're printing. If you click the action again, it turns off the action. And then we have our display modes, solid, wireframe, solid and wireframe, and then transparent. So transparent might be nice if you've got multiple objects here that you're trying to print together. But for the most part, solid just makes it easier to see. And then we have our views. We can do a top view, bottom view, front view. This middle one is the ISO view. ISO views are just kind of the standard view. So now we're going to go into more. And in more, I'm going to have fix errors. Now, if you've got some red areas in your model when you bring in, and this might happen with things that you bring in through SketchUp, where you have some holes, you have some normals, some facets that are flipped, some normals that are flipped, you may have some red areas. If you click this fix, it'll do its best job to make it a watertight model for printing. It may not fix everything, but it may fix it enough, or may fix it all the way. This model here, as you can see, there's no red areas on it, so it's solid, it's watertight. I can save the model as a project, so if I have it, say I've set this up with certain specific parameters, I can save that parameter so I can come back to open it later. And then I can restore to defaults. And this is supports editor, where the support is actually for overhangs and for arches and such, where if it builds the arch, that it's not going to be able to print the arch unless you have some scaffolding that goes up to be able to do that. I'm going to just quickly delete that model. I'm going to add a model here that is probably going to require some scaffolding. And 1 second here. H800 extruder cover. That'll probably do it. So this is the cover for one of the extruders. You can actually print the spare parts for the printer directly through here. So if I again go into More and I go into Supports Editor, in here if I select Show Supports, it's actually going to show me the support where it's going to be putting it in. And I can hide the model so I can see where all the supports are showing up. And then if I hover over each of these, it shows me where that support is. If there's an area of support that I really don't need, or that I really feel like I do need, I can turn that off and it removes that support. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and click confirm here. So it shows me the support inside the model. All right. So that is everything that goes with here. So this wheel here is our control wheel. It sets up the parameters of the actual model on how it's going to be printed. By right mouse clicking on the model, this gives us the ability to say how many copies of the same model I want to print. So we've got a copy here. I can go say I want to do a total of 4, so I want to make 3 copies. And it will load them in, but now it's outside the platform, as you see here. This isn't going to be able to print the way that it is right now, but once I've done this, I simply go to Autoplace, and it's going to automatically set it inside of our platform. I can, with each individual item, I can go ahead and move, twist, whichever one I want to do. I don't have to do it as a group. But I can do, if I do select all, I can merge model, and then it would make this all into one total model. All right. But I don't want to do that. And in actuality, I want to just get back down to one of our extruder covers. And I click delete on this one. And then I click Autoplace, and I'm back in the middle. Okay. So from here, we'll go into the print screen. And in the print screen, this is going to allow me to do layer thickness. The thinner the layer, the more time it's going to take. You'll get a little better detail on these side surfaces, but in education, I really recommend you stick to it at a 0.25 millimeter or a 0.3 millimeter, somewhere in that range, just because it's going to allow your prints to go more quickly, and you need, so you can cycle through and get your students done still in the unit that you're in. So I'm going to select 0.25 infill. This is going to be a shell infill, so what we're just going to do is just basically like a chocolate Easter bunny. Nothing on the inside, only on the outside. And then this is just vertical walls. So you're really never going to really need to print this at all. It's just there. But these are the important ones. We have 13%, 15%, and it goes all the way up to a 99% infill. And it does it by doing this cross-hatching pattern inside of the model. I recommend you stick at 13% or 15%. If you need to make it a more solid part, you can go down here. But in printing with ABS, the denser you go, the more chance of warping that you're going to have. So I recommend trying to stay up into these levels just for operation. Quality. This is more of a speed, I would say. And so we're going to have normal speed. Fine speed is going to be our slowest speed. And then we have fast and turbo. Fast is I kind of use that as my default. But if I want to go turbo, turbo is definitely going to be faster, but it's also going to be much noisier. The motor noises and the gantry noises are going to be considerable. So if it's going to be disruptive in your class, you may want to just turn it down to fast. It's not going to give you a too terribly much difference in the overall speed. Okay. Nozzle offset. This gives us the nozzle setting, or where the platform, how high the platform goes until it touches the nozzle. All right, and that's been done through our auto leveling process. Now, we may have a situation where it's actually not perfect. If we start printing and we notice that we are getting a lot of warping of the raft, where the raft is actually peeling up off of the surface, you want to go ahead and put in some positive values here to increase increase this value so it gets closer up to the nozzle. So your first layer gets pressed down well into the platform. Now, if it's too close and you hear some click, 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 click when it's printing, and the filament jams and it stops extruding, if it stops extruding, say, even if it's printing maybe a half inch of your model and it stops printing, it could be that your nozzle originally was too close and created too much back pressure into the nozzle. In that scenario, then you want to go to more of a negative value. Now, if you're going past a -2 or a -3 or a +2 or +3, at that point you should go back in and re-level or do an auto level of your platform and have it, because it'll pull up a new value for the nozzle detection. Okay. Unsolid model, I always leave it checked, and the reason that is you remember where we said that this will fix models that might have some holes in there. You may have a model that is not completely solid, it has some small holes in it. This will just, instead of just saying, no, I can't do it, it'll do its best job to do it. And if it's a good model, it'll just do it anyways. So as a best practice, I leave that checked. No raft, no support. So if you want to turn off the raft where you don't have the raft printing, that's where you select this. Now, I always recommend to print with a raft, and that's just going to create your best adhesion to the platform, so you don't create warping or you don't have the model slipping off and sticking to the extruder itself and backing up filament all inside the extruder. If you see that happening, that means that you don't have enough adhesion onto the platform, and we're going to have another video talking about that auto leveling process. We're also going to talk about best practices with keeping your platform clean. Okay, and then we have no support. So if we check this, that means we're doing no support, no scaffolding. Okay, but I'm going to leave that unchecked because I want the scaffolding to print. I want this area here, because otherwise, when I go up to print this bridge, there's nothing to support it, and that bridge is going to fall down as we're trying to print it, and it's just going to ruin our print. So we want to try to do things that are going to create a secure printing environment, because where you think you might save a little bit of filament or a little bit of time during printing, if the print fails up into here, which may be an hour and a half into your print, then you've wasted an hour and a half and you've got to start all over again. So we want to try and create a secure print environment. All right. Now, before going into print or preview or reprint here, these double arrows here, I'm going to click that, and that's going to expand this view into our advanced settings, and where we can change our surface of how many layers are printing on our top and bottom. So it defaults to 3 layers, and a threshold angle is going to be at what angle are we considering this being a quote-unquote top surface. So if it goes down to a 45-degree angle, it's going to start building in into the 3-layer increments. You can change this from 2 layers up to 6 layers. 6 layers obviously is going to give you a much stronger part on the top and bottom surface. But again, if you're printing with ABS, it's going to increase your likelihood of warping, because you're putting down so much material that as it cools, it wants to contract, and as it contracts, it will eventually warp. Printing with PLA, you don't really have that much of an issue with warping. But 3 layers is usually pretty good, unless you're going to change down to a 0.1 millimeter here. Then I really recommend you probably pop this up to about a 5 layers, because it's just, 3 layers times 0.1. It's not very thick. But if you're doing a 0.25, 0.3 that we recommended, 3 layers, pretty darn okay. Support. Roof density. This is going to be the top of our scaffolding that's actually going to touch the model, and that is going to peel off from the model as we take off the support after the printing is done. 3 layers, good default setting. Again, you've got the same range here. Threshold angle is at what point is the model at an angle from 0 or from horizontal that it will build in the support. So 30 degrees, again, pretty standard. I'd leave it at that. Spacing of the lines. It creates like an accordion support where the lines go serpentine back and forth like this, and those will elevate upwards. And the spacing is that from like a frequency wave. Think of it as frequency. It's the space between the beginning of one wave to the end of the same wave. Okay, it's a space denomination. So or denotation. You can space that out. Again, really encourage you to just leave it default. And then minimum surface area. What that is how much overhang. What's the surface area of the overhang that it's going to calculate to say, okay, I'm going to build support for that area. You can go, range this up to 20 millimeters as your threshold minimum surface area, so that, if you want to minimize the amount of support, we have found is that the 3 millimeters, it's really going to give you your best support and print and speed and combination thereof. Stable support, if you check that, what it's going to do is, remember those serpentine lines I talked about? If you have some really small, fine areas that as it grows and grows and grows, it may wobble, it may break. If you hit stable support, what it's going to do is it's going to maybe encapsulate that as it prints, or kind of makes it a little more substantial, and then you break that off. It makes for the support removal a little more difficult. So if you can get away with not using stable support, that's what I would recommend. Other options, thin wall. Thin wall is where you may have a very fine point coming out of an object, where it really makes like I said, like a really fine point. In our default, it may round off that point, okay, just to stay within the technical parameters of the software. Now, if you say thin wall, it's going to ignore those parameters and allow you to print that point as best that it can. So I just again, kind of like we talk about on solid model, I say thin wall, just go ahead and leave it checked. Preheat. Now, if you select preheat here, remember where we were doing that back in the maintenance section. If you select preheat here, it's going to preheat for 15 minutes, but it's not going to start the preheat until you actually send the print job. So you'll start your print job, it'll go over to the printer, and then you're going to wait, and you're going to wait, and then you're going to forget that you had that preheat set, and you're going to be going, uh-oh, something's wrong, something's broken. and then you're going to stop, and then you're going to send it again, and you're going to be like, why is this not going? It's because you got your preheat button on. So if this is something you want your students, or you just by default setting you want it to do that, and you just know that that's going to be the case, that you're going to wait 15 minutes before the actual printing will start, then check it. If you want to control that by yourself by using the maintenance section, then leave it unchecked. Easy to peel. As we talked about the roof density here of the contact from the support material to the actual surfaces of our model, including the raft, the bottom raft to the model. Easy peel is going to create just a slight bit more distance from the raft to the model itself that will allow for an easier peel, like a heavy Velcro that you're peeling off of an object. And that's good for most cases, so that's why I leave it checked. Now, if you've got a really large model, and easy peel will cause a little bit of warping on the model itself, that'll actually peel itself away from the raft, then you may need to turn this off. Okay, so but for the most part, I leave this checked. Sleep. What this will do is just allow the printer to go into a sleep mode once the print is done. Kind of a power savings setup. And then extrusion width, you can change the extrusion width here. I always suggest sticking with the default. Okay, and by the way, if you've made changes and you want to go back, click default. It'll put you back to where you were. So now we've got our buttons here. Reprint. If I click reprint, it's going to give me the list of the top 10 or the last 10 jobs that it's done, and I can reprint them, from here. Otherwise, I can click my history list if I don't want anybody coming in and grabbing any of the models from like a previous class or something like that. But I can go into to do a preview. And in preview, it's actually going to slice my model, which slicing is bottom, from the bottom layer to the next layer to the next layer. And it gives you, lights up everything here. So we can see how the yellow is our support areas, our support material. And what we can do is grab this icon here and start peeling it down. And what it'll show us is layer by layer of what each of our layers look like. So I can do that going this way. I can also go from bottom up. Couple of other features here. It's going to show us our time, 2.3 hours, and it's going to take 40 grams of filament. One other cool thing here is if I want to have a color transition, say from like this point on, I want it to be one color, but from this point down, I want it to be a different color. So I can just slide my slider here until I get to that level to say, okay, this is where I want a color transition. I can hit pause layer right at that point, okay? And so what that'll do is it'll pause my print at that particular section, leave everything hot, and then I can change out the filament to a different color, extrude it, and then hit resume, and it'll continue printing, so you get a 2-color print. All right, you can change colors as many times as you like. In doing that, it's what I've done is I've done some medallions where I've stacked up different colors at different transitions so that you have almost a little bit of a diorama type of look inside of there to give you like a Minnesota Twins logo. It's a great thing for doing school logos or a backpack tag, that type of process. Great beginner type stuff. So from here, I can also save my file as a TSK file to where I can move that TSK file over to a thumb drive and operate that from the front of the printer. and just to print directly from a thumb drive, a USB drive. Or I can go ahead and click print, which I will go, actually I'm going to go ahead and exit preview here, okay? Because that's the last button here is print. So I'm going to go ahead and click print. It's going to ask how many times I want to repeat this, not how many copies I want to print at one time, but how many successive copies, how many times I want the printer to repeat itself over and over and over. So I'm just going to click confirm here with one time. Again, we're slicing. Our platform has been preheated. Recommend to preheat that thing actually up to, if you're doing ABS, I like to get up to about 60 degrees Celsius before I start printing. PLA, you can just hit preheat and then just get, you know, that one, if you get up to 40 degrees C, that's great. All right. So now we come up, the print job has been sent. I could hear my printer over in the other room beep and let me know that it's actually starting. It's telling me here what I'm going to be, you know, what my print time is going to be and how much material, like we already saw on our previous screen. So I'm going to click OK there. And here is my meter that's going to tell me, you know, what layer we're on and the time. It's just going to keep cycling back and forth in regards to that. Now, over on our left-hand side, things have changed here a little bit. So now we have a stop printings, we have pause printing, but we still have where we can add and we can print, because these are network printers, or these have an ability to, these have a queue to where you can send queued jobs. So if you have multiple students sending jobs to the printer, it'll queue it up in order. Once one job is completed, you'll just open the door, clear out the job. Once you close the door, it'll say, do you want to print the next job? And it'll tell you the file name of what the next job is. You can either hit the check mark to have it start going, or you can hit the X key to have it exit. All right. So here, just a couple things just to show you. I'm going to go ahead and delete my model. Again, I can add my model, and oh, I'm going to Maker Faire. I don't even know what this is. Okay, so this is just some other type of object. You know, so again, this object here, I don't know that I would print it this way. So what I will do is I'm going to go to rotate. And actually, I'm going to select a flat bottom. So I'm going to go here. I'm going to select that triangle. Boom. Moved it right down. And I click confirm. So we can go over this again in each of these, but this is the process that we do. So hopefully this has helped you out some. This is just going to be one video in a series of videos here, where we're going to be talking about the setup of the H+1, and we're going to show about leveling and such. Thanks for watching. I'm going to go ahead and